We're going to transition right into our reflective activity. He's heading to the West Campus to have lunch with our students, right? Future nurses, those in our allied health program, those who are in our biology program, pre-med. So we're planning these seats early, and we have Dr. Diane Reed here, who's one of the leading nurses in our program, and we're very proud of that because our nursing program is going to be partnering with all of you all from the hospitals and medical facilities to integrate this work. We're going to start at the level of education. And so we have MDs in the room, we have the hospitals in the room. But I wanted to kind of keep the tenor here because we're going to transition into our reflection time, okay? And I want y'all to trust the process today as we try to build a day that's going to move us through reflection, learning more, reflection. But what today is really about is setting a vision together and really exploring possibilities. And I'm already hearing them bubble up. I'm hearing you all start to think of what if? Those are the possibilities. And we believe in holding the possibility. So the second the mind goes to, well, that'll never happen, catch yourself, right? Because we're just going to stay in possibilities today. You're going to have a chance to lay out your own personal vision, share it, and then we will move forward together as a community. We are planning to act on this, okay? But if we can transition now. Someone come up and get his computer. Don't worry about me because I'm not going to stop. Oh, we're good? It's our computer? He's good? Excellent. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so we're going to go into reflection. And also something of this, we need to reminder about our phones. So the work is about being together, ultimately, right? Connecting, noticing. And he keeps saying, ask the question, be present with one another. So especially when we have these reflection times or at table talks, if you can put your devices away and be present, it's just a really important invitation because we're humans and we need each other. And I just wanted to share something about myself and a piece of my story of why, I think there's people out there going, why is Valencia and PJI doing this work? What leads them to be interested? Well, some of it has to do with me. I direct the Peace and Justice Institute. And something you may not know about me if you don't know me is I'm 24 years sober. And it's I started at Valencia, I was newly sober, right? And then I've been at Valencia 22 years. I was newly sober. I would never let anybody know that I'm sober, right? Because it was a deficit. Something's wrong with me, right? With 24 years of sobriety, it is one of my greatest assets and greatest strengths. And I have worked the program, and having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message. And my circle of influence was Valencia College students. And I knew that they were struggling as much as I had struggled. And I wanted you to know this because I did a lot of work when I got sober. I had faced my life. I had a master's degree. And when I got sober, this is a true story, I could not read. I used to get a couple journals in the mail, journals, I couldn't understand them. Sobriety leveled me to not really being able to think. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I had to face my emotional life. And I'm telling you this story because I know there's a lot of counselors in the room here today, and there's a lot of teachers, which I am. But I want you to know one of the primary counselors who got me sober is in the room today, and her name is Karen. And she must have stepped out of the room. I don't see her. But she's a woman who walked me through my sobriety. She's in the room, my counselor. But what happened to me when I was 27 years old and I was hitting a wall and didn't know what was wrong with me, but I was pretty neurotic. But I presented pretty well, master's degree, good job, husband, family, it all looked good. And inside, it was not good, right? But when I turned to my mother and said, I need help, she said, I know where you can go. Because my mother is 32 years sober, and she's in the room also. We're going to talk about Nadine Burke Harris's book in a few minutes, or at the end of the day. But she says, I don't see any disease passed down generationally more so than ACEs. You know what I mean? And my mother didn't hit a wall until she was about 40 and moved into her recovery. I hit a wall when I was 27 years old. It happens younger generationally. So these kids that are hitting walls at 12, because it's generational. And the woman who helped me, not Karen who's here in the room, another therapist who helped me, she said, you know, the best thing a person can do for their kids is get happy. You know, and for our family, that gets it. And it's true. So I'm sharing all this because I'm a mom today. So they're growing up with Willie and myself, and neither of us drink or use drugs. We're sober. We're certainly not perfect. And we do the work of looking in at our lives and doing, we call it the inner work. So this is how we really lead out at PJI. Because to be agents of peace, in our community, the very first place I have to find peace is inside of myself. And as the kind of, I was pretty neurotic 24 years ago, right? And it took me a long time to get honest. That was the most excruciating thing, because if you all knew who I was and how I felt about myself and the things I did, surely you would turn away from me. You would not want to be with me. But I love how Dr. Felitti says, you know, the doctor just listens, and she doesn't turn away. She stays and says, okay. You know, and even better, me too. Right? It's happened to me too. So let's do some reflective work. And I'm going to turn to my dear friend and colleague, Rudy Darden, who's a professor at Valencia College and a PJI facilitator.
So with Dr. Felitti's work, we had a chance to experience what we would like to call at PJI the theory that's on the shelf. But there's another theory in the room that hasn't been published yet, and it's called the theory of the self. And so we're going to walk through just some principles first before we talk about what were awarenesses that we gained from Dr. Felitti's research. What stood out to you? What was an awareness to you? But before you answer that question with the person at your table, I'd like to introduce to you the card that's on your table that undergirds all of the Peace and Justice Institute's work. And it's called the Principles of How We Treat Each Other. And the way that we do this work is I'll read the principle, the first one, and then I'll ask someone in the room to stand up, say your name, and then read that principle until we get through all of the principles. And then I'll guide us through a series of questions that will allow each of us to have 90 seconds to simply respond to some of the awarenesses that we gained from Dr. Felitti's work. So here's the first principle. Again, my name is Rudy Darden, and the first principle is to create a hospitable and accountable community. It says we all arrive in isolation and need the generosity of friendly welcomes. We ask that you bring all of yourself to the work in this community. Welcome others to this place, this work, and presume that you are welcome as well. Hospitality is the essence of restoring community. Could I have someone read the next one?
Listen intently to what is said. Listen to feelings beneath the words. Strive to achieve a balance between listening and reflecting, speaking and acting.
Number 3, create an advice-free zone. Replace advice with curiosity as we work together for peace and justice. Each of us is here to discover our own truths. We are not here to set someone else straight, to fix what we perceive as broken in another member of the group.
Hi, I'm Catherine Last. Number 4 is practice asking honest and open questions. A great question is ambiguous, personal, and provokes insight. Give space for unpopular answers. Answer questions honestly, even if the answer seems unpopular. Be present to listen, not debate, correct, or interpret.
Respect silence. Silence is a rare gift in our busy world. After someone has spoken, take time to reflect without immediately filling the space with words. This applies to the speaker as well. Be comfortable leaving your words to resound in silence without replying or elaborating on what you have said.
Number 7, suspend judgment. Set aside your judgment by creating a space between judgment and reaction. We can listen to the other and to ourselves more fully.
Number 8, identify assumptions. Our assumptions are usually invisible to us, yet they undergird our worldview. By identifying our assumptions, we can then set them aside and open our viewpoints to greater possibilities.
Number 9, speak your truth. You are invited to say what is in your heart, trusting that your voice will be heard and your contribution respected. Own your truth by remembering to speak only for yourself. Using the first person I rather than you or everyone clearly communicates the personal nature of your expression.
Cynthia asks, when things get difficult, turn to wonder. If you find yourself disagreeing with another, becoming judgmental, or shutting down defense, try turning to wonder. I wonder what brought her to this place. I wonder what my reaction teaches me. And I wonder what he's feeling right now.
Interest term. Number 11, practice slowing down. Simply the speed of modern life can cause violent damage to the soul. By intentionally practicing slowing down, we strengthen our ability to extend nonviolence to others and to ourselves.
Tony Crabtree, all voices have value. Hold these moments when a person speaks as precious, because these are the moments when a person is willing to stand for something, trust the group, and offer something they see as valuable.
Sandra Foster, maintaining confidentiality. Create a safe space by respecting the confidential nature and content of discussions held in the group. Allow what is said in the group to remain there.
And thank you. So these principles undergird all of the work that we do at the Peace and Justice Institute. And to respect what Dr. Filiti focused on, we want to make sure that we're not saying that you, in the pairs that we ask you to be in, we're not asking for you to share your own ACE story. No, no, no. We're asking that you focus on some awarenesses with respect to your field of influence, how this work might be useful for you. And I'm going to have some prompts on a board or on the screens in just a few moments. But before you get an opportunity to share, I get a chance to introduce my friend, also someone who's in the work, a counselor, Mr. Pernell Bush.
How's everyone doing today? I must say that I'm very excited to see you all in the room. You know, for myself, doing the work, I can honestly say that between academia and me being a clinical social worker, I'm just excited about the enthusiasm behind ACEs. Now, oftentimes when I go home, I pull out a lot of my childhood friends. We go out and play dominoes together. And I'm like, hey, I got a question for y'all. And the first thing they say, oh, here you go again. So I pull out the ACEs sheet, and I pull it out, and all of them, I say, man, I need y'all to take this sheet for me. And as they took the test, and everybody scored 4, 5, I think 3 of us scored 7. And everybody we just laughing because this is all common childhood things to us. Like we think about somebody throwing things at you. Like, oh man, my mama threw a bat at me. Your mama cuss me out every day. These things were common childhood things to us. However, when I told them what these scores indicated, the room got kind of quiet. Because we are all now fairly successful. I'm a 31-year-old grown man now with advanced degrees. And I'm like, you mean to tell me because I scored a 7, my life has a 20-year less expectancy? 20 years we cut off my life because I scored a 7 on this test. Once again, though, all us men sitting around the table like, well, we say it is what it is. But I asked them the question, how would you want this to look for your children in 25 years? And I was like, nah, I can't have this for my baby. So from that point, it's like, what can we do as a collective to start working together? And hearing Dr. Filiti today, some of the things that I have realized that the ACEs score doesn't tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. It's just a prediction. So all of us here working together today have a way to start turning that prediction around. We can start working with the communities that we're reaching out to. I know I had one young lady ask the question. One of the main things we used to be is that caring individual just listening to these kids, to these young people. For myself, having a mother that was incarcerated and went to prison when I was 8 years old, living out white like some water when I was in my early elementary school years, seeing individuals shot in front of me, I had no idea that what I seen was just an everyday life experience is something that can impact my life. Not just the social, emotional things that I knew I went through, but the neurological underdevelopment that I went through. It makes plenty of sense. Like a lot of us had the same thing. Like our backs have to be up against the wall in order for us to really activate. Like, so we needed toxic stress for us to actually be able to move. And we all can all identify, we created those situations, so we felt that because we were familiar with that to get moving in our lives. And then the chronic diseases that can come along with it. So, once again, I got to tell you all, I'm very excited. Because what like Dr. Filiti stated was that this does not mean that this is what can be the final outcome. But us here working together here today is a movement forward. It is a step forward in the right direction. And my ultimate goal is what we can take away is that we all start speaking a common language when it comes to ACEs. Many of us say we're ACEs informed, we're ACEs sensitive, or we're providing ACEs specific care, but it might look different in each organization. So until we all are on one common page to ensure that these individuals that we're working with, that shall be our ultimate goal, that all of us are on one common page, on one specific language, to ensure that we're providing the most informed care that we can for our communities. Thank you.
Pernell just whispered to me. I tried not to be too long. It wasn't long, Pernell. That was perfect. But now what we want to do is, you're sitting at a table, and we want to get you in pairs. And so if you could turn and position yourself, someone who I respect, someone who is the president of my college. They pay my bills. Let's give a hand for Dr. Sandy Schubert.
Good late morning. So I do not have a speech for you. I wasn't asked to give a speech, and I don't volunteer to give speeches. Sometimes I get volunteered because I am, despite some people's assessment, a profound introvert. So what I can do is practice two of the principles. One is, I have no advice for you. Yes, it's the only thing better than no advice is no PowerPoint. Because on everything that matters, they're powerless and pointless. I do have a couple of things I'm wondering about, and I'll just share that maybe just as an example of one of nearly 600 people who's wondering a lot at the moment. And I would say I'm a little overwhelmed. There's so many ways to go with what we're learning. And I'm such a beginner. So much yet to learn about all this. So I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about my parents. I'm thinking about our students. I'm thinking about my colleagues. It's overwhelming. So one of the things I'm wondering about is, I think it was Rousseau who said, childhood decides. Isn't that a great phrase? Childhood decides. I think he said that. I may have made that up when I was much younger and reaching for a quote in a speech. But I think it was Rousseau. And I wonder if that's true and untrue. The true part, I think we would agree on easily. So much of what we experience later in life, and now we've discovered so much of the actual organic pathologies that we experience are determined early. The untrue part is what I'm really wondering about, because correlation and causality are not the same thing. And the trap of, for me at least, the trap of assuming causality and correlation might actually be unhelpful to the people we want to serve and love. I just came a few minutes ago from a breakfast with I don't know, a couple hundred people that included a lot of students that are being mentored while they make their way through high school. They all come from unlikely backgrounds in terms of being scholars, but they're called scholars. And they're succeeding at an enormously high rate. The high school graduation rate in this program's 100%. The college going rate's 100%. They come from the middle schools that are in the toughest places to grow up in our community. Childhood could have decided for them, but it didn't, because somebody intervened, something changed. So one of the things I'm wondering about is how not to get deterministic in the thinking about this, to understand these probabilities of future health challenges or future behavioral issues or future social challenges and so on aren't determined. They're just likely, unless something changes. The other thing I'm wondering about is that sometimes when I'm meeting with faculty and trying to understand their work and need to start a conversation, I'll say something like this. Every pedagogy implies an anthropology. What's yours? I usually get silence. And I have to explain, here's what I mean by this. If you haven't thought deeply and reached some of your own conclusions about what it means to be a human being, what it means to be an adult human being who is also a learner, it might be in your class. If you haven't thought about that deeply and grounded your practice as a teacher in what you've come to believe it means to be human, then you're actually a proceduralist, like a Jiffy Lube technician who has a set of procedures somebody else wrote and they know how to follow them. And you don't take your BMW to the Jiffy Lube to be diagnosed. You take it there just for an oil change, or maybe you don't take it there at all. You don't want to be a proceduralist, do you? None of them do. But we've created so little room in people's professional preparation to ask that question. And general education, which was supposed to have addressed that once upon a time, now addresses the idiosyncrasies of individual disciplines. So where do people go to ask the questions together? What does it mean to be human? What's my anthropology? In some respects, it's a much better starting point for conversation than almost any other question I can imagine. Like, what's your politics? Or what's your theology? I think the better starting point is, what do you think it means to be a human being? And there are lots of resources to draw on for that. One of which that's emerging is science. It's only one. I'll tell you, my anthropology is changing as I read this work. I was trained in cognitive neuroscience, how the brain works, mostly how the brain learns. And I'm having to change everything I think. I had no clue how blurred the boundary has become for us between behavioral and organic pathologies. Where's the boundary? It's interesting. I'm wondering. I'm sure of this much so far, and that is that our students, our work, all 75,000 of them on any given day, every one of them is capable of learning everything we have to teach. They're perfectly capable of doing this. It's one of our sort of animating ideas at the college that I think sets us apart. Most colleges believe that some people can learn some things some of the time. And it's just chance, maybe, that the ability to learn is higher in some zip codes than in others. We believe that anyone can learn anything under the right conditions, period. And it doesn't matter where you were born, or what your parents knew, or what language you learn in, or any of those sorts of things. Now, many of you in the room are already nodding that you agree with this, that you share that anthropology, or that one inside anthropology, but you probably don't really. I mean, how many of you who are nodding have ever said, "No, I'm not very good at math. I'm not a math person. That's why I became a counselor." But I assure you, under the right conditions, calculus is just as easy to learn as anything else. And so is playing a musical instrument. And so is speaking almost any language. Right? I mean, honestly, haven't many of you thought it's too late for me to learn another language? My language learning part of my brain turned to concrete years ago. My children can learn a language, but not me. We don't really believe it, but it's true. You can. We tell a story at the college about that. We say it's actually a true story. I gave a talk on how anyone can learn anything under the right conditions in Texas in 1998. It was death by PowerPoint because I didn't understand the pointlessness yet. And so I marshaled all of this scientific evidence about the capacity to learn. And at the end of the talk, having proven my scientific point, I was very proud of myself. And people came up afterwards, and this one young woman said, "Thank you for that. I really think that's a neat idea. And I think it's true in most disciplines." And I said, "Well, what is it you teach?" She said, "Oh, I teach German. It's really hard. The syntax and the grammar are weird. The vocabulary is odd. Word order doesn't work the same way as it does in English. It's just a weird, hard language. And after 15 years of teaching German, I can tell you there's some people who just can't learn it." And I said, "Wow, sure is fortunate for them. They weren't born in Germany, isn't it?" Think about that. Pretty much, she looked at me funny. It's pretty much 100% of the people born in Germany master German. Do you think that's genetic? Like there's a Deutsche gene shaped like a D. He's still looking at me. So it just happens that the conditions for learning German are exceptionally good in Germany. And if I took you and your grandfather and dropped you in Kitzbühel, Austria, with 100 euros and said, "I'll be back in 6 months," you would be fluent in German. That's just the way it works. That's an anthropological insight, isn't it? So we believe that's true of our students, that they can learn anything. But they're not. There are still substantial gaps in performance, and the gaps follow the same fault lines that we see in everything in our society. We've been successful in partially closing those gaps in learning, but not completely. And I have a new hypothesis, and the hypothesis is we knew that homelessness was unevenly distributed, and that interrupts learning. We know that hunger is not evenly distributed, and it undermines learning. And we know that lack of transportation and lack of childcare, and start naming all these issues that follow the same fault lines. And now I have a new one. ACEs are not evenly distributed either. And I don't know what to do with it yet. So I'm going to keep wondering, and I hope some of you can help me learn what we might need to do about that. Thank you for being a part of this.
I used to live in Ardmore, Oklahoma. We probably banked at his bank. And that's enough about that. But it's just odd. But that's the way ACEs are. That's the way trauma is. And as we talk in our group, it's like, it's never those people over there. It's never the other person. It's all of us together. And that came very, very clear to me early on. Of course, if someone is living in severe poverty, experiences daily racism, community violence, interpersonal violence, you can expect levels of higher stress ongoing. But basically, as Dr. Felitti said, this is all of us. This is all of us. So Peace for Tarpon is run on that premise, that it's not the professionals that get together and decide what we do and how we do it. It's every single person in the community offers the peace they can. And that was our first slogan that was arrived at by a group of just regular folks who were on our marketing team. The marketing materials they came up with now nearly 10 years ago still are very, very, very powerful, because we wanted to be able to express the work we wanted to do without talking about trauma, ACEs, ACEs, ACEs. So they came up with a list of just phrases that kind of give the flavor, the feel for who we are, that incorporate the underlying story. But some of the questions are, you don't have to offer an ultimate solution. Have real conversations. You're not alone. Love is a powerful thing. Compassion is a powerful tool. And it's funny that simple piece of marketing brought people to our table, because it infuses them with a sense of possibility that they have something significant to contribute to this work that I see as the public health issue of our time. This is the work we're all meant to do. Now, I meant to ask you to time me. Am I doing okay? Thank you. Thank you. Just go when it's time. So I came out of this from a very non-professional type thing. I was an artist. I opened my studio in Tarpon Springs in 1985. I probably still am an artist, but now my art is this evolving community process. We hold monthly meetings at our city hall. People sometimes call me and they say, "Where's your office?" The best I can do is Eco Bean Coffee Shop, which is right behind my studio that I can walk to, and usually I look like I just walked out of a sponge warehouse, which is where I actually live, an old abandoned sponge warehouse. So that's the full disclosure, that's the real me, but that's what I bring. But it also kind of lowers the bar to where someone who is one of our most powerful, passionate advocates is a hairstylist. Now, when she would come to our monthly forums, because it's not just professionals, of course the mayor is there, we have a commissioner there from time to time, heads of agencies are there, but they might be sitting next to a hairstylist, someone who goes, "I'm just a regular citizen." We're all just regular citizens. Beyond our professional hats that we wear, the language that we speak this shared language of humanity. So at our meetings, we don't speak in acronyms. That was an early lesson. We are an emerging model. We're learning as we go. So every day brings new learning, new understanding to us. But early on, if you're a regular house mom or house dad or, PTA mom or whatever, sitting next to the head of an agency, and they start talking about, the ADT of the DDG and the DOJ and the JG, you'd say, well, I'm way too stupid to be in this meeting. And you've just basically shut them down, right? So my friend Peggy, the hairstylist, we came to around the table around ACEs. It's very important information to know this, but then also we move past this. On our monthly forum agendas at the very top is a quote by Margaret, I call her Meg, Margaret Wheatley, Meg. And it says there's nothing more powerful than a community discovering what it cares about. All of you in this room have discovered one big thing that you've cared about, and I applaud you for that. You're here for a reason. You signed, no one forced you to be here, hopefully, because another thing that's at the top of our agenda is the trauma-informed principles of SAMHSA, that we always use gender equality, voice and choice, trustworthiness, transparency, all of these things, and that's how we run our meetings, that's how we run our lives. I have 10 seconds left. How am I going to best use this time? Huh? Pardon? Oh, no, I didn't hear your mm-mm. But listen, you guys, there are other communities following our model. They're like, what's your model? We're making it up as we go along, basically. That's the honest truth. We're making it up as we go along because we're the emerging model. So it's not like, well, they're not doing as good as that other one that came before them. We're the first one. So that gives you a lot of leeway to make mistakes. One of our major mottos is launch and then adjust. It's not going to be right the first time. You launch. So that's what we're all doing here. Thank you so much for allowing me to be part of
Thank you,
this.
Robin. All it takes is just one person, one step, one reason, and get everybody together, and thank you for that. I want to come back to you and say, is there an incentive that gets them in the door to keep coming back? And we'll talk about that in just a moment, because sometimes people have to have this little carrot sometimes just to come to a meeting. How can we get away from that? Because this is too important, and there's no money attached to this, but life is. Hello. Down at the end over there is Dr. Candace Jones, and her remarks, well, you already heard me say this, so I'm just going to give you a chance to just go ahead and express yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you for your friendship. She's such a blessing for those who know her. Thank you to all the partners, our city officials, everyone from all the sectors for being here today and being willing to do this work and seeing the importance. I'm just so elated at how many people I'm looking at. My heart is racing, but I'm excited for the possibilities to come. Thank you also to all of my fellow committee members. Putting this together and envisioning it and getting it started under the leadership of Rachel. Thank you guys so much. So I have a question to start out for everyone. After hearing Dr. Folletti's presentation today and everything that's gone before this, does everyone have a good understanding of what ACEs is? Just raise your hand if you do. If you don't, that's okay. That's really good. You probably did coming in here, right? Because you're ready to do the work. But if you don't, that's okay. We're going to learn and grow together, right? And to be perfectly honest, I think someone asked this question earlier. I'm a pediatrician. I went to medical school, did residency at Johns Hopkins, and I knew nothing about ACEs. 3 to 4 years ago, kind of the past few years like you, I was just searching. You mentioned I do a podcast, Kid Health Podcast, and I'm searching for answers to my parents' questions, right? Some of them I know off the top of my head, but our practice was in the Pine Hills community. And almost every day that I work, sometimes more than that, I'm literally talking about parenting discipline. The parents are telling me that the schools are saying, evaluate him for ADHD. We have tons of behavior problems, learning problems. And so I was searching for, I know how to evaluate for ADHD. I know how to, pieces of the puzzle. But putting it together was, and if you've read The Deepest Well, just, the same thing that Dr. Burke Harris went through, trying to put it together to make sense for me. I'd never been taught about ACEs. And so I stumbled upon ACEs, talking to experts, having a podcast episode on it, and I said, oh, that's it. My patients have tons of ACEs. They have family dysfunction. Some have been subjected to abuse, neglect. Some have parents that are incarcerated. They're in a community that's high crime, gun violence, death all around them. They have a parent maybe with mental illness or substance abuse. in their home. So they have constant ACEs. And so I learned to say, is this ADHD or is this behavioral symptoms, learning problems due to toxic stress, high doses of ACEs? Is it? And I think I saw Tammy Thornton here. Is Tammy here? There you are. Yeah, I'm shouting you out. And I want to talk about her more. She asked me at a panel with Representative Anton that very question. And I was still in the process, Tammy. Still in the process of getting that connection. And so now I also ask, when I'm looking at kids, I'm hearing the parent in distress, the turmoil in the home, the calls from the schools, parents are going through. And not all kids are going through this. But we know the percentages of ACEs, right? And we know how it shows up, especially in children, in their behavior, in their learning. And so I started asking that question that we've all heard, what's happening to you? Not what's wrong with you. Because a lot of us are saying, what's wrong with you, boy? Go to suspension, go to kick him out, you know? And what's happening to you? And so all of us need to get to that place of awareness with ACEs and look at people that way into, you know, young adult and adulthood instead of just saying what's wrong with you and thinking what has happened to you or what is happening to you. And I'm particularly asking this of our educational sector, juvenile justice sector, our criminal justice and public safety sector, that we think about ACEs before we judge and before we act and don't add to the trauma, right? Dr. Robert Block, and I know I got to hurry, past president of the AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm not going to do it. Never mind. ACEs are the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation today. So how do we tackle this? It's got to be done. As a pediatrician, this is my perspective, because I've heard some things that may be a little counterintuitive. You know, as we talk, right? We are going to have, everything's a possibility, but we may have some differing opinions within sectors. I'm the medical sector. My hope for Central Florida is to not only build a trauma-informed community. I'm going to read this because I know my time is going, and if I keep freestyling, I'm going to talk all day. Build a trauma-informed community, but a community equipped with healing practices and resilience-building strategies to support and empower its people. In order to do this, I think, these are some of the things I think from the medical sector, okay? One, we have to continue to look to our neighbors, our national models with programs that, and model programs that work. We have to continue to raise awareness and educate the community, if it's a billboard, a PSA, or whatever. Third, I got 3 more points. Screen for ACEs, and I understand the triggering thing, but at least in the medical field, the AAP recommends all children be screened for ACEs at every well child visit. And I think that needs to extend into adult practice as well. Because that's how we know who's at risk and what your health risks are. I do need to know if you're 4 times more risk of having a heart attack. I need to know that. And then I need to put you on a path to heal and prevent that. So I need your score. Okay? And we need to figure out how to do that in other sectors. I know that might be different, right? So has
Candace, you know what I think we're going to need to do?
Yes? Okay, sorry. Yes.
Here's what we're going to need to do. In order for time's sake, because I'm looking at Rachel's face. I'm real big on faces.
Sorry.
No. This is all of them, please. What I think I need to do now is to just get web information, because I'm sure those things are posted on your website. I'm sure your points are as well. And Lucy, I know that yours are also for Family Hewitt. But or at least contact information so that we can show our interest by going directly there and dialoguing with them, because I get an idea of where you're going, but everybody needs to see it in print, and we need to start acting on it. And that is how we need to wrap this up today, okay? Because of time constraints, and I want to be, all right? Can we get, well, I was looking at you, number 4 and 5. We do. Okay, thank you very much. That's a good thing. Go ahead, Candace.
I'll go quickly. 4, develop a system of care for individuals with 4 or more ACEs. When we identify those individuals, we need to collaborate and coordinate across sectors. For instance, with our patients, if there's a problem with this child, I suggest I see trauma. I'm talking to the school, I'm working in the home, and back to me, medical care. Everybody needs to be in the loop. The goal is to prevent further trauma, create a buffer, and start the healing process. 5, partner with quality mental health providers who are skilled in trauma-specific therapies. We are working with Ms. Tammy Thornton. And just real quick, whoever is skilled in EMDR, CPT, prolonged exposure, seeking safety, trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy, raise your hand.
Look at that, look at that, look at that.
Identify some people, put them in your phone. This is your team. These are our partners. Implement healing practices and resilience building strategies through strong parenting and early intervention programs, promoting sleep, nutrition, mindfulness practices such as deep breathing, meditation, and yoga. All of these have been shown through evidence to counteract the impact of toxic stress and strengthen coping skills. Last one, create a centralized resource center or database for easily accessible resources and support for everyone. We should be able to just call it up to give to individuals. We can collect data there and guide best practices, and we can also, that can serve as a referral and tracking system so people don't get lost. Frederick Douglass said, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men, right? So we have to get this right because it gets into our DNA and goes through generation to generation. We have to get this right for our children and our children's children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I rushed.
You know, I think what really needs to happen, because I looked around at the mental health providers in this room, and there needs to be a sign-up sheet, a listing, and that needs to be shared. So there's got to be something that comes out of this today other than we just came to, get some CEUs. It's a lot more than that, okay? So Dr. Candace, thank you so much. Dr. Candace, we always get good information. Thank you so much, Robin, and we need your information. How do we reach back to you? Even if we're not in Tarpon Springs, getting some sponges.
We have a website, of course. We have every kind of social media account in the world, but I'm available by phone, email, whatever.
You want to share that information?
Sure. You want my phone number?
I want it all.
Just Google Robin Sanger, Google Peace for Tarpon. There are contact forms on Peace for Tarpon. Those come to me, and I will respond to you. But I'm always available for phone calls. We also have folks come over for site visits to meet with us when we have our monthly meetings. Everyone is welcome. There will be Greek food involved, and that's
When are
that's
the
all I can
monthly
say.
meetings?
The last Friday of every month at City Hall, the second floor conference room.
Okay.
And they're open meetings. Anyone in the community can come. The room is always packed. It's never the same people. We have a very simple form, a way to agree to be part of Peace for Tarpon, and that's a simple MOU. I was also in city government. I learned about memorandums of understanding, so I logged onto that. And so we have a very simple MOU that asks people to understand ACEs, understand how it looks in the world, understand what they can do personally or in their professional realm to address that. ACEs Connection, sign up for that. All those are in our simple one-page MOU. and which has also changed 4 times because, as I said, we're constantly evolving. Went from a 2-pager to a 1-pager to a simpler and simpler. So all that is available also on our website.
Well, thank you very much. Lucy, how do we reach you?
Our website is incredibly underdeveloped, but you can go there and get some information, and it's familyhui.org. And I have cards here, I have brochures here, and I guess if I were to kind of summarize work going forward, just from experience that I've had, is that what you do is important, but how you do it is that much more important. So it's not just your what, it's your how. It's your process is incredibly transformative. Also, there's so much pressure that we yield big numbers in what we do, but it's actually, big change happens in small groups. And I think that needs to be honored. It needs to be honored by our funders, that they understand. You can have lots of small groups, but big change happens in small groups, and you're not going to get that level of trust without it. And if you want change, you need to build in a reflection component in whatever you do. And also, we can't expect to do something externally outside of our organization unless we're doing it internally. We can't expect to do it externally, personally, unless we're doing it internally.
So we hope this afternoon, this little breakup for your lunch has been not only informative, but just the impetus for change for all of us. Just start thinking, just start looking at the kids that are surround you. Look at your coworkers. They probably struggled with these same issues from childhood. Have a little more understanding as well. And just learn how to communicate. And Pastor Joel says, and just love on each other. So we thank our panelists, and we also thank Clayton, too, for being on with us a little bit earlier. Find some folks that have some money that want to invest in what you're doing to improve our community. Y'all laugh, but you know that is the bottom line. And those unrestricted dollars do work. So just look out for ways to just increase just knowledge in your community. They always say knowledge is power. I say it's what you do with it that makes it so powerful. Thank you so much for having me be your interweaver. I appreciate you. And pick up Dr. Burke Harris's book. That'll give you an even better explanation.
Wasn't that phenomenal? Let's give them another round of applause. So right now, what we're getting ready to do, as Rachel has already mentioned, we're going to bring Sheriff Mina up. He's going to share a few words with you, and then you will see me again after he is finished. Come on, let's put our hands together for Sheriff Mina.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I had them put this podium up here because I thought it'd be weird if I was relaxing in one of those chairs in front of all of you. Plus, I do have a couple notes. But what a great day and a symposium. I have some staff here because, as you know, we're a very important part of this. This is an important conversation here in Central Florida, and just educating our community across all these different disciplines and about the significance of childhood trauma. So when I speak to my deputies and especially our younger deputies, I talk to a lot about treating people with dignity and respect, because many times, like the folks in here, we're left sometimes to pick up a lot of the pieces. And so one of the things I tell them, one of the many things I tell them is, people don't call us, and certainly they don't call all of you when things are going great, right? So a crime has been committed, sometimes serious crime. We're there to arrest someone. There's a disturbance, a fight, someone's injured. So we're always going to many of these bad situations. And where I try to relay to especially these young deputies is that just by the grace of God, that's not you in that house with roaches crawling all over the floor, born into poverty. So many of the people that we deal with and that you deal with sometimes are born with 2 strikes against them. And you heard Dr. Jones mention some of that. Born into physical abuse, born into child abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, born into drug-addicted homes, alcohol-addicted homes, extreme poverty. Imagine growing up at a house where there's drug dealers and violence in front of your house every single day. Imagine being born into a home with no mom, with no dad, with no mom and no dad, with mom in jail, with dad in jail, with mom and dad in jail. So by the grace of God, that's not you. So I think this is a very important conversation, and we want to be a part of it, because what we know is we can't keep this community safe by ourselves. It's going to take all of us, and there's some great people in this room and some great organizations, and you do a lot for our community. But I think all of us working together, learning more about ACEs, learning how it can apply, learning how to help us keep this community safe. And one of the things I always tell people is we didn't get into this profession in law enforcement to arrest kids. That's not why we came into this profession. Sometimes we're forced to that, and a lot like many of the crises and things that we deal with in our community, we know, and I think you know, that we can't arrest our way out of this situation. We can't arrest our way out of it. That's why law enforcement has grasped the idea of crisis intervention training, especially dealing with folks with mental health issues. That's why when the state of Florida told us that juveniles are more likely to continue committing crime once they have been put in handcuffs, that's why we're increasing our use of juvenile civil citations to keep them out of the system. So I think if we're working together more collaboratively and focusing on why and how, and instead of just arresting our way out of the situation like we do, I think that's a great start. So we in law enforcement fully support this multidisciplinary work that someday will help us lead us to a deeper understanding of childhood trauma and explore ways of policing by integrating the science of ACEs and trauma-informed practices in our community. I think together we can learn to identify individuals who are affected and develop responses to trauma and help support a more peaceful and safe community. So that's the main purpose of me being here, the top law enforcement official in Orange County, is to let you know that we are committed to this and to learning more about this and to be involved with all of you to make a better, safer, more resilient community through advanced training and education. And we work very closely with Valencia, with Peace and Justice Institute, and also the Law Enforcement Academy there, and to help develop training. So this is just a piece of that, a step in the right direction. So in the future, as we move forward, we want to learn more about how this can, between ACEs and the correlation between criminality and incarceration, and then do something about it. So my final message is, again, that we are fully committed to this. We in law enforcement want to learn more about ACEs and see how we fit in to this piece, see how we can start driving crime rates down, driving incarceration rates down, and certainly continue the great trend that we're already seeing with the decrease of putting our kids in handcuffs. So with that, I'm going to let you get on with the conference and hear from all these great speakers. Again, fully committed to this and definitely wanting to learn more about it and see how we fit in. Thank you very much.
Okay, so now we're going to move into a break. But before we dismiss, we want to set some rules because you will not be coming back to the same tables in which you are sitting now. On the back of your name tag, you will find a number. On the front or on the back, on the front of your name tags, there is a number below. You're going to find your seat. Those tables should be depicted on these screens when you walk back in. Please take your programs and your principal cards with you. We're going to have deep conversation about this subject from different sectors. So take 10 minutes to use.
Ten more seconds. Bring that thought to a close. Look at the people at your table and for the last time say good job. And give each other a hand. So here we go. All right. I want to say thank you, but your table moderators, they have yellow cards. And these are commitment cards. And we're going to spend the next 2 to 3 minutes writing down a commitment and an action step. And then after you write that down, what your personal commitment and your action step is, we're going to ask that you take a picture of that and have that on your phone. Because we want to take these cards and we want to see how we can synthesize these cards and how we can glean some information from these cards. And we want you to snap a picture of it because we'd love for you to hashtag it, right? And we want you to share it to social media, whatever is your social media platform. And the hashtag is ACES, ACES, CFL 2019. Hashtag ACES, ACES, CFL 2019. So go ahead and write down your commitment, your action steps. Take a picture of it. And after about 3 minutes, I have the next thing that I'm going to ask you to do with those cards. That's our timer. All right. So because we've already created now a hashtag for this, we're going to do something else, and then we're going to ask you with the microphones to, if you feel so inclined to do so, to share your action steps and your commitments, or 1 or 2. But what I'd like for us first to do, and this is, I love to say this in my classroom, this one is going to be for the gram or for the book. That would be Instagram for some of you that don't know, and for Facebook. If you could take your card and just hold it above your head. And we're going to get a whole, because we have about 500 people. And there's something just look at it. Look at all of these commitments in the air. And if you would, snap a picture of this. I'm taking a picture of it myself. I'm going to do it. You keep those up. I'm taking my selfie. It's happening. This is the work of the community. Keep the cards in the air. Keep them in the air. I just have to get this. I put it on the phone, but I wanted to get it in my head. I just wanted to hold that image. This is amazing. Go ahead and put the cards down. Thank you, thank you. Let's give yourselves a hand clap for that. So, we have people with microphones now. We want to hear some of these commitments. We're going to do about maybe 2 to 3 minutes of this. So if you feel so inclined to just raise your hand, and the vision and action steps, vision and action steps. And if you would say your name, please, along with it. Let me make sure we get your microphone color. Which color is that? What color? Red?
You can't hear me. Can you hear me?
Now we have you. There we go.
So my name is Shahinaz, and my vision is to create an army of peace, starting now with children after 20 years, so they would be a peace army adults. And my actions are to promote the Compassion Project. I'm currently working on a project called the Compassion Project, and to also do peace, wellness, and leadership workshops, which I'm already doing. I'm trying to promote in the community. Thank you very much.
All right, 1 second. Don't clap yet. Watch this. So when someone shares in a room something like that, what I like to do at these events is say one clap. That's all of us acknowledging at the same time that voice, Shani Naz, that's her name, her voice was shared with the room, and we honor you and thank you for sharing what it was were your action steps. Everyone, let's give her one clap. No, somebody jumped the gun. Let's try that one more time. Here we go. Somebody jump the gun. Get on my rhythm. Here we go. Thank you, Shani Naz. One clap. Now that's it. Here we go.
Hello, my name is Mary Zaida Torres. So my vision is to take more of a proactive role in working with kids and parents to make healthier families. And in our group, there's actually a daycare manager. And I promised her in the summer that I would run a parenting workshop and a play therapy workshop.
Y'all, wait. No. Hey, I got Miss Torres. Y'all, let's give her one clap. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Yasmin Flasterstein. I'm Executive Director of Peer Support Space. I help mentor people to run peer-led groups, and I'm committed in over the next year to start some parenting peer groups.
One clap. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Lord Eugene. I wasn't really prepared, so my voice started shaking. He put me on the spot. I guess my vision would be, I asked my group if they're aware of carbon credits. It's when major businesses reduce their emissions around the globe, right? Anyone who reduces their carbon footprint, they get some kind of incentive from the government, from what I understand, right? So my thing is, like, all of our leaders, if your constituents, like, came together, right, and we all took, well, maybe either parenting classes or ACE classes, I think that each one of those zones or each one of those districts should get some kind of credit score for it, right? So it incentivizes it for the community and for that individual. So we're talking doctors, we're talking about parents, we're talking about all types of people in the community. So what happens when you raise your credit, right? Everyone wants to move in, businesses come in, you want to raise your kids there, you want to get married there, you want to live there. So that's a great way to reduce some of the crime in some of our communities around.
One clap. Thank you so much. I have over here, red shirt.
Hi, I'm Maggie Cardenas. I work in Valencia, Osceola County. My dream is to impact my community. Right now, I'm trying to finish my graduate degree, and I'm part of that program of Direct Connect. So I am so excited that I came in today so I can have my dreams become a reality. First, I had to finish my degree, but I know that there's a lot of people that are working hard in my community. 90% the diaspora from Puerto Rico and the diaspora from Venezuela, from South America, which I'm from Ecuador, South America. So that's what I want to do. I'm going to be the first one in my family to go to graduate school. So it's been hard, a long road, but I think we need more people in our community doing this.
One clap.
Hi, my name is Cool. That's my advisor. I go to Valencia. So my 20-year vision would be, for us to live in a world where mental health is seen as important as the physical, because most times mental health does metamorphose into the physical anyway. So I would love if in 20 years our world kind of saw that as just as important, especially in ethnic and African communities, because that's where I'm from. Sorry. Anyway, and then now actions I actually want to do. I've been talking to my pastor from our church. On the last Sunday of every month, I wanted to do a single mother's breakfast, and me and my friends were gonna do pedicures for the ladies and things like that, and then just slide them a survey so they don't know. Because a lot of times Because a lot of times, like, parents are just, they're seen as like this entity in their own selves, and they just have to always keep going, and they never take the time to actually see why they do these things and how they're actually affecting their kids. And I feel like as the parents, the mothers are actually distressing, and they cannot start thinking, and they can go home and be like, it kind of starts with me so that I can break generational curses. So yeah.
One clap.
Hi, I'm Mary Bridges, and I'm from Orange County Public Schools. I'm gonna need my glasses. My 20-year vision is that all teachers will be trained in trauma-informed care, and students pre-K to third grade will have the opportunity to learn self-regulation, conflict resolution, and coping skills that will assist them through school and life. And my action for the next 12 months in the position that I'm in is to make sure that in Orange County Public Schools, all of our resource officers and administrators and all of our 212 schools are trained in both youth mental health first aid and trauma-informed care.
You know, you can always tell in an audience where most people are representing, and so I thank you, OCPS, and I also thank all of the mental health professionals in the room. And so thank you. Yes, that's deserving of an applause. That certainly.
Let's do a little shout out to OCPS. I want you all to know that OCPS, under the leadership of Mary and their superintendent, Dr. Barbara Jenkins, they have 85 people in this room.
We have one more in the back.
My name is Susan Timmons, and I am a public health nurse. And my goal is that I will be able to provide families with tools that will help them to deal with stress. And one of the main things that I would like to run is more classes, parenting classes on Circle of Security that does not just deal with the issues of the child, but build relationships within homes. That's one of my goals.
Wait.
I don't mind a lot of claps.
I know. You took that. And we're going to give you that. That is all right with me. We have one more. We have one more. Two more?
Okay. Hello, my name is Dina Brady. And the vision for our community, my vision for the community in the next 20 years is bridging the gap for community support so all of us are connected to a solution and we never have to do life alone, while incorporating trauma-informed dialogue. The action I'll take over the next 12 months is to get funding for the Bridges of America to bring Kula for Karma trauma-informed yoga into the facility while including the ACEs. I'm going to pull the whole slipperoo like you did.
One clap. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One more, just one more. Okay, and as the representative of the judiciary here, I'm Judge Alicia Lattimore, and I don't have 90 people here with us. But I do want to say that my vision is that the judiciary will become trauma-informed, and particularly the Florida bench, and that we will continue to learn about ACEs and how ACEs affects those individuals from the community that come before us day to day. And also my commitment is that I will continue to educate the judges, as well as I want to educate the community by giving presentations about ACEs, as well as how trauma affects children and how it is that we all can help if we had a better understanding of that. So.
Can we give a standing ovation? No, a ovation for that one. Come on, that's the judges. That's big. Woo! They're begging to share.
I know.
Do we have time?
We're going to do it. We'll do that. And I see somebody over here that's like, please. So go ahead. We have time for a couple more. Go ahead.
I shall be very brief. My vision for 20 years community is happy, healthy, and harmonious community. And I promise to take action in that respect. I'm a member of the Interfaith Council of Central Florida, and I know Our community is intercultural. Our school students are intercultural. And because of intercultural issues, students are subject to stress, like bullying is one of them. And there's a lot of trauma in many lives. Therefore, I'm going to work with the council to reach out to the schools to create some intercultural student committees and groups to increase respect for each other. Thank you.
All right, so I love the applause. I do. I do want to say something about the applause, though, in that it's great when you get it. But the reason why I say one clap is because if the sound of the applause honors one more than the other, then we might reconsider some of the action steps. And so while I'm loving the woo, I'm loving that. But as a way of in a sign of solidarity for honoring each voice and the contribution that each voice makes, that's why I say one clap. So watch this. One clap. There we go.
Hi, I'm Mary Asbury from Valencia College Disability Services. So Valencia has, 75,000 students, and we have no real mental health counselors on our campuses. So my vision for the next 20 years is for Valencia to have real on-site mental health counselors at every campus at Valencia College.
One clap.
One more.
I'll be really quick. My name is Angela Gonzalez. I'm with Love Made Visible at Mosaic Church, and I think it is very important for our church and our faith communities to be trauma-informed. So we have committed to bring trauma-informed care practices to churches.
One clap. So here we go. Let's give all of ourselves a clap. All right. Now we need to hear from the great doctor. And there are a lot of doctors in the room, and so I appreciate, especially in academia, we really value the knowledge that comes from doctors and the research that has been done to inform not only what we do, but how we do it. And I'd like to introduce to us Dr. Donald Plumley from Orlando Health to say a few words.
Thank you all for being here today. I appreciate it. I'm a trauma surgeon, so I'm exhausted. This is, I can go to the ER and take care of someone with a fractured spleen and a broken leg, and it's a piece of cake. And I can fix that, and it'll be well in a week. But these are issues that we're talking 20 years. I'm hoping like next week I get through that. So this is an audacious goal, and I appreciate everybody for looking at this. We were kind of talking at our table, and this trauma that we have is something that's almost a cult. It's happening and it's not recognized. So we have to go looking for it. And at Orlando Health, we do have some areas that we've worked on this through the Howard Phillips Center. I do all the trauma admissions at Arnold Palmer, and unfortunately, we're in the unenviable position of we're being the counties that have the highest non-accidental trauma or child abuse cases. And so how apropos that we're here talking about this. So we have a problem, but we're addressing it. And it's this whole community of people coming together, various professions. And as a surgeon, we're trained in a very concrete way and not to think outside the box. Actually, we're trained that we're always right and all the rest of y'all are wrong. And so if I hold up my yellow card, that's one you should take and probably just publish. But no. As I've gotten more gray hair, I've realized, and to be open-minded to these things. I interact mainly with our child protection team, and we've had a child protection team through the Dr. Phillips, the Howard Phillips Center for over 4 decades that have provided for the children of the community. And these are for the severe cases, the obvious cases. And what I sit here and wonder is how many other cases are out there we're missing. And just that we have these touch points and whatnot, and it's going to take the whole community. But we as healthcare professionals, we need to be educated too. I didn't learn any of this in medical school. This wasn't even, 30 years ago, we didn't even talk about these things. So I think it's an important thing that we look at. Some of the things the Howard Phillips Center does is there is a therapy program for abused children called the Healing Tree. And what this does is it provides trauma-informed care to the Central Florida community. That's a mouthful. And what they do is they use an evidence-based practice called the Trauma-Focused Cognitive Behavioral Therapy Program. And that's really the only trauma-specific treatment in the area. And as we talk, though, we have this area of expertise, but is it robust enough to provide for the whole community? So I think as we have these discussions and whatnot, it's how we as a community can work within our resources to be able to provide care and opportunities for everybody. Some of the cool things they're doing is we have something called the Teen Express, and this is a kind of a big RV that goes out in the community and allows for health care for underprivileged teens. And they do ACE screenings at that, and they have a grant, and by doing that, they're able to identify at-risk people and intervene. But again, this is a small little tip of the iceberg of the greater problem, but there are some opportunities. What I like about it, though, is that this is staffed by our residents, our physicians in training. So they're getting the opportunity up front of these issues and how to deal with the issues and how to recognize these issues. And how we as caregivers, and caregivers is all of us, a school teacher is a caregiver, a mental health worker is a caregiver, how we can incorporate this into our practice to not only identify but be able to help children. We participate in the Tri-County ACEs program. We're presenting the Resilience movie, and there's flyers on your tables and out back as you walk out. They'll be aired later. But just on behalf of the hospital, we're very committed to this. Actually quite honored to be here. This is an eye-opener. They said, they need you to speak at a trauma conference. And like, okay, how many slides do I bring? And is it PowerPoint okay? And whatnot. So this is good for me to take back to our team as well, of what all the opportunities here are and what anybody can do. So thanks.
Okay, all right, we're bringing it home. We've got a couple more things today to wrap it up. But one of the things we want to do, I want to invite the readers here to come up to the stage. We have 10 individuals who are about to read to us. So I want to just mention this book. We have referenced it a couple of times today, but it's called The Deepest Well, and it was actually Dr. Candace Jones who, when I was first meeting her over the phone and getting involved in this work together, she said, I'm reading Nadine's book, and you got to read it. And I got it that night, and I mean, we at Valencia, we've purchased a couple hundred of these and given them away because it's so powerful. I can't recommend it enough. This woman, I think, is single-handedly igniting this movement, along with Dr. Validi, who we heard speak. This study was dropped on her desk in 2008. She, like Dr. Jones, was experiencing all these kids with that looked like ADHD or, and asthma. And she was saying, just like Dr. Jones, like, what is this? What is this? And somebody dropped this study on her desk, and the light went on, and she said, I get it. So here's the good news. This woman was just appointed the Surgeon General. First time ever the state of California has appointed a Surgeon General. And it is Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, and she is leading the way with ACEs in the state of Florida. I'm sorry, California, Florida. That was my vision, right? Whoops! They call that Freudian, right? So anyway, so The Deepest Well. But I read this book, and I think a number of the people in this room have, but she lays out her vision in the epilogue. She calls it an epilogue. I call it her vision. So we're going to hear it read today. So it's being pieced apart. Are we in order? Are we here? We're going to start with Diane and Amina. Oh, this is fun. And then Jessica, and woo, look at how cute they are. All right, so this represents our local leaders, like us, who are doing this work. So just listen. Now, you're not going to get all the references, like when she talks about her son, Grey-Boo, and stuff, but listen for her vision, because she's saying, in 20 years, this is where I hope we will be. And y'all just pass the mic.
Hello, hello. Okay. It's 2040 and things are a little different. I'm a grandmother, really. Now, but you wouldn't know it. I still look good. I'm retired, and when I'm not putzing around in my garden, I keep busy chasing the grandkids. They are 4, 5, and 7. And of course, I spoil them rotten. The guilty pleasure of every grandparent since the beginning of time.
Okay. Our eldest son, the twins, are 37, and I'm in love with my daughter-in-law. I am, by the way, who both called me directly after their first prenatal appointments to tell me they had an ACE screening as part of their routine prenatal care. Even though it's standard nowadays, they know how much I love to hear about doctors following through on the guidelines that CYW helped develop. Our boys just roll their eyes when their wives indulge me as I rattle off about back in the day stories. But I know they are secretly proud each time they fill out the school forms for their kids and see the checkered box that certifies each child has received an ACE screening right along with vaccinations and TB tests.
Grayboo, who now insists on being called by his proper name, teaches 3rd grade at a public elementary school. He gives me the ACE scoop from the other side of the desk, telling me how the school incorporates ACE awareness into its teacher training. One of the first things the school makes sure of is that the teachers know how to recognize the symptoms of toxic stress in their students. Every morning, Gray guides his class in a quiet time meditation practice to help his students hit the reset button as they start the day, reinforcing the self-regulation skills they have been working on throughout the year.
Even though I'm retired, I still take time to teach at least one course on ACEs and toxic stress to first-year medical students at Stanford, where Kingston is now part of the class. We start at the beginning of the semester with the biological mechanisms, and by the end, we're discussing the latest interventions for healing a disrupted neuroendocrine immune system.
On the public side of things, the movement has taken off. 2 decades ago, CYW was instrumental in convening a group of advocacy and education organizations led by the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society, and the American Lung Association. And together they created a powerful public education campaign. It started with a viral video and spun out from there. Billboards, posters in doctors' offices, a Super Bowl ad, and more.
Celebrity volunteers to be a part of the Faces of ACEs ad campaign. And they share their stories along with the call to action. Know your score and learn how to heal. My son's generation is the first generation to grow into adulthood without the stigma surrounded by adversity. These days, having an ACE score isn't any more shameful than having a peanut allergy.
But the campaign did far more than change attitudes. 20 plus years later, we've seen a 40% decline in the number of Americans reporting 1 or more ACEs, and 60% decline in the number of Americans reporting 4 or more ACEs. Adverse events still happen to all people, but they are no longer handed down from generation to generation.
The Resilience Investment Act of 2020, which provided federal dollars for screening, treatment, and research, created a national consortium modeled after the Children's Oncology Group that is widely successful. The double-digit decline in healthcare spending allows us to reallocate dollars to national priorities in some predictable and some surprising ways. Our increased allocation to early childhood care and education programs was a no-brainer.
The big surprise came when I got a call from the U.S. State Department asking me to help advise on a new program that will work closely with other nations' governments to deploy widespread ACE screening and early intervention in high conflict areas. This way, we can inoculate the younger generation so they will not be susceptible to induction into gangs, militias, and insurgencies. The science of toxic stress has become a powerful tool in maintaining a global security, and our military also uses the latest treatments to help our troops returning from combat.
Ultimately, I help where I can, but for the most part, there isn't much for me to do. What started out as a movement has become just how people do things: basic infrastructure, standards of the medical practice, common wisdom. So Arno and I spend most of our time just being grandparents. We take the grandkids to the park, we buy them things we know we shouldn't, and when I come across my grandkids chucking paper airplanes at one another, I grab my tape measure and my stopwatch and laugh when they all roll their eyes and flee before the science lesson begins. All of them, that is, except for one.
We want to thank everyone that read on this panel today. This vision is not just only something that we look forward to seeing in the future, but these voices are representation of what we're going to expect each and every one of you to do, to make this a reality by doing the work. And by doing the work, that means having the conversations, committing to your doing what you said you were going to do, and making that a reality. So again, thank you for reading today. And you may take your seats. So now we're going to move into a fun part of today. I'm going to give away some books. On your table, all of the leaders, there's a present. It looks like a gift. It is a gift. It is a gift. But what we're going to do is, the person at the table with the birthday closest to today will take the book home. I see we got one over there. Yeah, so congratulate them and happy early birthday if it's in this month. And I have an extra book, so if someone did not get one, the person fastest that can come up here and grab this, I will give it to you. Congratulations. Okay, so we have an announcement. For all attendees who are going to be receiving CEUs or certificates of participation, please turn them in to the CEU table before you leave this event today. In order for it to count, we need paperwork, documentation showing that you were here. So please turn that in. Also, someone lost a wallet, a tan wallet. So if this belongs to you, please see one of us after so that we can give this to you. I wish I could have had an Oprah moment where I could have said, you get a book, you get a book, you get a book. But we're going to just do it that way. So we're going to move on in our program. We're now going to be taking the time to move into action, what we're calling Collabora Action. An idea we learned from Dr. Fayshonda Cooks, who is with us here today. Dr. Cooks, can you please stand and wave your hand if you're still in this place? Let's give her a round of applause. Now, to continue that, we're going to ask that Karen Willis, the Executive Director of the Early Learning Coalition of Orange County, will come up and give a few words.
If no one claims the wallet, I will. I need money for match. Okay. Or if you're like me, there's no money in it, so it won't do any good. Anyway, thank you all very much for being here today. Kim, were you going to come up here or just going to wave? Kim, where are you? Coming up, because I just want her to stand by me so that, I don't like pass out or anything, because I'm so shy about a microphone with me. Anyway, this is Dr. Kim Rink, and she is a UCF professor in psychology. And she's the lead researcher for a project that we are working on in conjunction with UCF, and 100 Women Strong called Circle of Security. And one of our good friends in the back had mentioned Circle of Security. So I wanted you guys to see Kim because it's a great program that you might want to learn a little bit more about to see if it's something that you might be interested in doing. And if you ask her, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to talk a little bit about it. Kim has also been one of the partners in planning this conference, so let's hear it for Kim. Let me do just a couple things. One, I want to thank our sponsors, Orlando Health, Central Florida Foundation, the National Association of Social Workers, and the Cameron Farrad Foundation. Thank you guys so much. We could not have done this without you. Round of applause, please. I think everybody was asked to do it before, but I can't thank Rachel enough for bringing us all together. But could the planning team again please stand up? Come on, you guys, you know who you were. And last but not least, the vision of Patty Ambinder, the chair of the Peace and Justice Institute. Patty, you're here. Could you stand up, please? And of course, Rachel for her leadership. Rachel, big round of applause for Rachel. Now, we invited you all here today to build community and make a commitment to improving the quality of life for everyone in our community. You've made your own personal commitments to the folks that were sitting at your table. You held up your cards. But now it's time to make a public commitment. Each of you were asked to identify the sector that best represented you when you signed up. Did everybody remember kind of what you said you were going to? Hi, I didn't know that you were here. Sorry, personal. You guys remember the sector that you said? Okay. We're looking for today for folks who will commit to serve as leads for your sector. So on your table there are some blue cards. If we don't have enough cards and you want to be a sector leader, grab the card after the person has filled it out and put your name on the back. It'll work. We can do front and back. But we also know that some of you are not able at this point to be a sector leader, but we're hoping that you would be interested in serving on an input group for part of your sector. So you've got two choices on the card. One, serve as a sector leader. Two, if you can't do that, let us know if you'd like to serve as a committee person. What does the lead have to do? We did indicate that on the card, so there should be no surprises, but if you don't have one in front of you, we're asking the sector leads to organize meetings with your sector mates. Now, we know that you don't know everybody in your sector. We don't expect you to know everybody in your sector. But if you could at least pull together people who you do know to do a couple things. One, begin to inventory. What is your sector currently doing? There's a lot of work that's being done in our community, and I don't think we're giving ourselves credit for that work. Lots and lots and lots of work. It did not take any time at all to pull up the planning group together because these are the folks who know that there's work being done in our community and really want to see that work progress. So we're asking sector leads to do an inventory of what's being done in your sector and to identify best practices of what's currently being done here in Orange County and best practices of what we could bring to Orange County. We're also asking that the sector lead be willing to meet with the ACES planning group and help us set goals for the next year. Help us also monitor progress, hold each other accountable. And last but not least, this work doesn't get done without some kind of financial support. So we're also asking that you would be helpful to folks who are looking at planning grants to be able to provide us data, et cetera, in working on grants. So that's really what a sector lead would be responsible for doing. So if you're willing to do that, please sign up, check that box. We would really appreciate it. We're having a planning team meeting on April 16th at 2 o'clock. So those of you who are interested in being a sector lead, please put that on your calendar. If you cannot join us, please let me know. And we'll be sure to include you in the email for setting up next meetings. fill out the cards, return them to your team leader, your table leader, and table leads. If you could please put those cards back into the envelope so that we can collect. Anybody have any questions on what we're asking you to do? Today is not the end. This is just the beginning. My table was talking a little bit about, okay, so what can we do from here? I think the doctor suggested one thing that the Dr. Phillips Center, or I'm sorry, the Howard Phillips Center is doing, and that's showing the film Resilience. We have lots of copies of this here in our community. This film can be, it's actually a DVD film, you know how old I am. Anyway, it's a DVD, and it can be borrowed, and it could be shown at any of places that you guys are interested in showing this. What we're interested in doing is putting together some teams of people who could come out and be part of a panel discussion at the end, can be there to support the work that you're doing. That's just one example of things that we could do. One of the other things that was mentioned earlier today by Dr. Floody was working with the media. Would it not be exciting for us to see if we could put something out in the media for people in our community to respond to see how do we stack up? I think that would be very interesting. I think would generate a lot of discussion in our community. Just a couple of ideas of things that we could possibly do. This is very important. I don't think any of you came here today not thinking the work was important. I don't think any of you came here today not knowing anything. Hold your hand up if you didn't know anything about ACEs when you came. 2 people, 3 people, 4 people? Okay. Do you feel like you know a little bit more about it now? Do you think it makes a difference? Yes, those of you who do not know. And those of you who knew about the work, did you hear something today that you didn't know? Do you think that this is something that we as a community should commit to continuing to do on behalf of our community? Well, your planning team that pulled this group together today, 565 people, holy moly. We're not gonna go away. We have all of your names, all of your there was a reason that we asked for your email addresses. And I know where some of you live personally, so I will find you.
We'll stalk you in a healthy kind of way.
Yeah, kind of. In a healthy kind of way. But anyway, let me close by saying, and I know that this is really about what happens to children before they're 18, but the largest number of children that are removed from their homes are under the age of 5. The Early Learning Coalition is committed to helping children in our community be ready for school, and we can't do it without each and every one of you sitting in this room. At any point in time, there are over 80,000 children in this community who have not yet entered kindergarten. Since August, almost 1,000 children have had out-of-school suspensions. Those children were between pre-K and 3rd grade since August. That behavior didn't start in school. That behavior started when those kids were babies. In the Early Learning Coalition, we have a thing that we say all the time. Change the first 5 years of a child's life and you change everything. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the commitment and the vision of the Early Learning Coalition. Thank you very much.
Y'all hear me? We have an exciting moment here. Thank you to Karen and Dr. Rank and the work that's being done in the community by so many people to advance ACEs and all the work that's going to come out of today. So, how else are we going to stay connected? There is something that's really exciting, and it's called ACEs Connection, and you've heard it talked about today. And so this is a social network. A woman on our planning team, Cindy Jury with the Early Learning Coalition, at the first meeting said, we need some kind of social network where we can do this work together. Well, here it is. This is a national, really it's a global network. Communities have focus areas, and then stuff comes in from all over the world. So we are going to have ACEs Connection Central Florida, and there it is. That's a screenshot of our page. And what's going to happen is, in a day or two, you're going to get an email in your inbox inviting you to join ACEs Connection. So all of us, if you click that and join, now they're going to ask for a profile because they want to make sure you're not a robot. They're going to make sure there's no spam. This is a legitimate site. This is led out of the colleagues that Lucy talked about in Davis, California. This is Jane Stevens and Gail Kennedy. And so we have our own community site now. It's a soft launch. There's not a lot there, but it's an opportunity for us to get going. Click it, join. They're going to ask for your name. You can put your own picture. That's my little picture up there, that red little person up there. That's me. And then you can respond. Everybody has a voice on ACES Connection. You can chat. You can ask questions. You can do blog posts. You can post events. You can post articles. You can report out the good news. You can tell what's going on with Circles of Security here in Central Florida. You can report out data that you all are doing. Everything that we're doing in Central Florida can be reported right here. How exciting is that? Yeah, I can tell everyone's. And this is going to be only as active as we make it. But I will tell you how I do it. I get an ACES Connection email in my box every morning. I get the Orlando Sentinel, I get the Chronicle of Higher Education, and I get ACES Connection. Those are my three kind of. And so with ACES, what it does for me is the email comes in, and it'll be talking about, yoga with kids. Oh, yeah, mindfulness, right? Or it'll talk about juvenile justice reform. Oh, yeah. It just reminds me of all of the areas and all the stakeholders who are advancing this work. And so it keeps me focused on this work. And some of the articles are very relevant to my work, and I use the data and stuff, and I share it out. So any questions about ACES Connection? This is coming to your mailbox in the next 2 days. And what I thought we would do is, a lot of people want to be at this conference and they couldn't be. We've invited thousands of people and we actually kept all those emails. Let's send it to all them, right? And say, we know you couldn't be there, but here's a way for you to, because I think the video that's been recorded today, we'll put it on ACES Connection, okay? And so the people that weren't here, they can see what happened today. That is the program from today, is on ACES Connection. And then the resilience film that Karen just talked about will be on the events. And we're off and running. Yes? Any questions about ACES Connection?
It has been a pleasure. We are wrapping up this event, so we're coming to the end. So again, my name is Will Jefferson. I just want to encourage each and every person in this room. Take the opportunity to advance the work. Whatever you can do, do it. I've heard a saying that if you have to crawl, crawl. If you have to walk, walk. If you can run, run. Whatever it takes to complete the task, do it and commit to it. And then we will see a more informed world, a better world, and a healthy world. So again, Will Jefferson, Community Manager with Peace and Justice, it has been my pleasure. And then facilitators at your table, we have one piece of paper. It's an assessment. We need each and every person in this room to take the time to fill that out. What we're going to do before people start running for the door, don't leave. We still have another treat. Yes. So what we're going to do, 10 minutes. So what we'll do is once you fill that out, we'll practice. One of our principles, we're going to respect the silence and allow you to put real thoughts on the paper and to answer that survey. So please take the time now to complete those surveys, and then we will collect them. Thank you.